Okay, are you all set up? Is the defense ready?
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and bring the jurors back in. Please be seated. The record will reflect the presence of the jury. Mr. West, you may proceed.
This is a sad case, of course. As one of your fellow jurors commented during the jury selection process, a young man lost his life, another is fighting for his. There are no winners here. How profound and how insightful. Sabrina Fulton and Tracy Martin are grieving parents. Without question, they have the right to grieve. They have the right to feel the way they feel. George Zimmerman's parents also are grieving. You see Trayvon Martin's parents, Mr. Martin and Ms. Fulton, here in the courtroom. They're seated right over here. They're likely to be witnesses in the case. You don't see Mr. Zimmerman's parents here, though. They would be seated over here the way the courtroom has been constructed. And there's a reason for that. The reason is that they are on the witness list. They may testify, they may not. As you know from the beginning of this, there's a couple of hundred people on there, and certainly not all of them will testify. But because they might, and because they are not related to the deceased, then they're not allowed in the courtroom now. That's the reason. Not that they aren't here, not that they aren't, in fact, right around the corner in a room wishing they could be. That includes Mr. Zimmerman's wife, Shelley, and other family members. Any witnesses, unless there's a specific exclusion that they may sit in the courtroom, cannot. I grew up in a family that had certainly moments of great joy and moments of profound sadness. There's no doubt all of us have had in one form or another. And my mother used to, actually she still says, if she gets a chance.
Objection, Your Honor, as to improper argument during opening statements.
Sustained. It's personalizing. It's supposed to be what the evidence will show.
Well, I think the evidence will show that this is a sad case, that there are no monsters here. Sometimes you have to laugh to keep from crying. So let me, at considerable risk, let me say, I'd like to tell you a little joke. I know how that may sound a bit weird in this context under these circumstances. But I think you're the perfect audience for it. As long as you if you don't like it or you don't think it's funny or inappropriate, that you don't hold it against Mr. Zimmerman. You can hold it against me if you want, but not Mr. Zimmerman. I have your assurance you won't. Here's how it goes. Knock, knock. Who's there? George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman, who? All right, good. You're on the jury. Nothing? That's funny. After what you folks have been through the last 2 or 3 weeks? Let's get on to, however, the serious business of why we're here. Let's take a look at where all of this started. George Zimmerman is not guilty of murder. He shot Trayvon Martin in self-defense after being viciously attacked. And here's the evidence that will show you how and why it happened the way it did. I've got some things to display for you that will help. Some of them will be up there too. Is this okay? All right. Oh, sorry. Okay, what you're looking at is an aerial view of the complex in Sanford. It's over near the Seminole Town Center there, called Retreat at Twin Lakes. This is basically the whole thing. Just as a bit of orientation, George Zimmerman lived down here in this area. This street is called Retreat View Circle. Sometimes people use that interchangeably with the complex name. The complex is Retreat at Twin Lakes. This is Retreat View Circle. Here is the clubhouse. You can see the pool right here. This is considered the main entrance. And this is known as the back entrance. So we have the main entrance here, there's a gate, and the back entrance here. I guess you can get in either way, of course. The pool, there's some mailboxes around here for the community. And I think this is called Twin Lakes or Twin Trees, this street that cuts through here. You'll hear a lot of testimony about the T intersection, the T. That simply is where two sidewalks connect perpendicularly. That's where almost all of the important events took place, within just a few feet of that. Let me point that out to you here, and we have a better picture to focus. This is it. Sometimes this is called the dog path or the dog walk, and there's the T right here. You can see over here is, again, Retreat View Circle, and this can be a cut through. So you can, if you're walking, come right through here between these rows of houses, go down this way if you want to get to this area, or continue on through if you want to get to Retreat View Circle. These are the backs of the houses. The fronts facing the street, the backs. They all have patios. They're all basically the same floor plan townhomes. They have patios. Some of them have screened-in porches. Some don't. This is the back of this row of houses here. So, as George Zimmerman left his house in his Honda Ridgeline truck to go to Target to get some groceries for his lunches for work. This was a Sunday night, February 26, 2012, in the neighborhood of 7 o'clock. In fact, just a few minutes after 7. George Zimmerman leaves his house in his truck and goes out here to get to the exit on his way to Target. He sees a person that later becomes known, of course, as Trayvon Martin, coming into the community, not through the gate, but cutting through the houses, standing in a place where people that live there wouldn't typically come into the community. There's a big, let me show you. Some of these turned out better than others. Just to get sort of oriented a bit. You may have some difficulty. Reinhardt Road. The complex right here is over here. The main entrance is off here, the back entrance over here. This is a big apartment complex. I think it's called Colonial Villages. Over here is the 7-Eleven. That's where Trayvon Martin went to buy the snacks. So to get from here to here, you can come this way and up, or you can cut through this path that cuts off sort of the triangle and go up here, about a mile. I know that's hard to see. It's about a mile from here to here. You can also cut through these apartments if you want to save a little distance. You can cut through these apartments and just go right through the gully up into the complex over in here. You can see part of the other complex here. So George Zimmerman sees Trayvon Martin in a spot and he caught his attention, caught George Zimmerman's attention. Little did George Zimmerman know at the time that in less than 10 minutes from him first seeing Trayvon Martin, that George Zimmerman, would be sucker punched in the face, have his head pounded on concrete, and wind up shooting and tragically killing Trayvon Martin. George Zimmerman participated in Neighborhood Watch. The community asked him to do that, to be the liaison with the Sanford Police Department. Wendy Dorval is the person with Sanford that coordinates all of that. She comes out to homeowners upon request and gives a presentation, PowerPoints, literature. She wants a point person, if you will. Not a captain, a liaison, someone they can email, someone that can help distribute the flyers that she prepares, and to coordinate the Neighborhood Watch effort in the community. Ms. Dorval knew there was increased crime activity in this particular community over the several months prior to this event. There had been a number of burglaries. She can tell by crime mapping that crime was on the rise, that people were stealing things. There had even been a home invasion, and that the homeowners association was interested in forming a neighborhood watch. This is late summer, early fall of 2011. George Zimmerman had been active in the community and was asked to help coordinate that. So he did. There's some emails back and forth and such. No patrols were set up. George Zimmerman wasn't patrolling this night or any other night. But people were told if they see something suspicious to phone it in. Call the police. If you think there's a crime taking place, you call 911. If you don't necessarily think there's a crime taking place, but since you are the ears and the eyes of the community and you want to bring the person or the event to the attention of law enforcement, you have a separate number. That's the non-emergency number that you've heard about. It was recorded, and we're going to play it here in just a few minutes. George Zimmerman called the non-emergency number and described for the dispatcher, a fellow by the name of Sean Nofke, what he was seeing as he was seeing it. Mr. Nofke was asking questions. Mr. Zimmerman was giving answers. You will hear the tone of voice. You will hear both sides of the conversation. You will hear those words, "These assholes always get away, fucking punks." You'll hear those words, and I hope that you'll put them in the context in which they were said and assign whatever meaning ultimately you think they have, if any, in the overall context of this. So what we did, let me draw your attention to something before we actually play the recording. There's been a lot of publicity, some of you may have even heard it, that George Zimmerman was in his car and was told not to follow Trayvon Martin, and he did anyway. That is absolutely untrue. Absolutely untrue. And you will hear that on the call we're going to play. You'll hear the conversation. You'll hear, as Mr. Guy pointed out, the chime. You can hear Mr. Zimmerman opening the door. You can hear the door shut, if I'm not mistaken. And you will know on our timeline exactly when that happened in reference to everything else. You'll know when George Zimmerman got out of the car, and you'll know what he was doing when the call ended. But there's something else, though, to keep in mind, because we put a little timeline together that shows the sequence of events on the non-emergency call. But we also connected up the call from a woman named Rachel Gentile. Rachel Gentile is a person that has been variously described as Trayvon Martin's girlfriend. She was clearly a friend, although not a girlfriend, but they had been communicating pretty regularly on the phone and by text for a couple of weeks. And that Trayvon Martin had spent a lot of time on the phone with her this particular day and the days preceding it while he was up in Sanford. So that calls actually. There was a call that started before Mr. Zimmerman's non-emergency call and then ended at a point that we'll show you. And then there was a gap of about 20 seconds, more or less, where the call with Ms. Gentile ended, and then it started up again at about 7:12 and some change. So there was only about 20 seconds there. However, George Zimmerman is still on the phone with the police during that gap. And then the call reconnects, and it's a continuous call between Trayvon Martin and Ms. Gentile until 7:15:43, roughly. We'll connect that with the first call to 911 made by the resident who lives right here. The times are written on the timeline, so I won't bother trying to remember them and get it wrong. But that was at about 7:16:11, roughly. And the call between Rachel Gentile and Trayvon Martin ended about 7:15:43.
be with you in just
So
one.
it's around 30 seconds from when the call ended. Of course, Mr. Zimmerman is not on the phone at this point. Mr. Martin and Ms. Gentile are. And then the call from the resident, having heard the commotion. Here, I'm sorry if I didn't say that before. Let me show you. Okay. This is the T again, right here, and here. Now we are over here. This is the T. The angle is a bit bad, so it looks like this house obscures it. It doesn't. There's an equal distance through here, and we can show you that. So this is the person who lives right here who calls 911 after hearing the commotion that starts right here. And best guess, 20 to 30 seconds after the commotion started that caught Ms. Lauer and her husband, Jeremy Weinberg's attention. And by the time they got the phone figured out and working, got connected with 911, about 30 seconds roughly had passed. And then that's the call that you'll hear the rest of. Now, you'll hear the screams in the background. You'll hear the shot. We'll play that here, too. And you'll hear, of course, Ms. Lauer talking to Sean Nofke. I'm sorry, not Sean Nofke. He was the dispatcher speaking with Mr. Zimmerman. I don't know who Ms. Lauer was talking with on her call. Again, this is the clubhouse, the pool, and you'll hear testimony that George Zimmerman's truck, this silver Honda Ridgeline, was parked right about here. It was seen later that night after the shooting by another retreat at Twin Lakes resident and neighbor of Mr. Zimmerman, a woman by the name of Eloise Dilligard. She saw his truck and said, "Ah, that's George's truck. I'll ask him what's going on." We'll talk more about that in a minute. So this is just another view. If you see them side by side, this is the T. There's a little doggy disposal station here. Jonathan Manalo lives on the end. Jenna Lauer and Jeremy Weinberg live here. And right next to them is John Good. He was the eyewitness. He's really the only resident that actually saw much of anything close in time to the shot. And he got a good look. He made a diagram, in fact, of what he saw that night. I'll show you that. He gave a clear description of what he saw, and we'll talk more about that later. So, before I'm done today, I also want to spend some time talking with you about the forensic evidence that's directly connected with the shooting. But before we do that as well, let's listen to the non-emergency call that Mr. Zimmerman made. What I'd like to do is play it from beginning to end without anything else. And then I would like to point to certain parts of it I would ask you to listen to when it comes into evidence and make note of. So it's only, 4 minutes long. Mr. Pinella, if you would help me with that.
Sanford Police Department, line stand, record the shots.
Hey, we've had some break-ins in my neighborhood, and there's a real suspicious guy. It's Retrieview Circle. The best address I can give you is 111 Retrieview Circle. This guy looks like he's up to no good, or he's on drugs or something. It's raining, and he's just walking around looking about.
Okay, and this guy, is he white, black, or Hispanic?
He looks black.
Did you see what he was wearing?
Yeah, a dark hoodie, like a gray hoodie, and either jeans or sweatpants and white tennis shoes. He's here now. He was just staring.
Oh, he's just walking around the
Looking
area.
at all the houses.
Okay.
Now he's just staring at me.
Okay, and so it's 1111 retrieve you or 111?
That's the clubhouse.
That's the clubhouse. Do you know what he's near the clubhouse right now?
Yeah, now he's coming towards me.
Okay.
He's got his hand in his waistband. Yeah, he's a black male.
Okay. How old would you say he
He's
looks?
got a button on his shirt. Late teens.
Late teens, okay.
Mm-hmm. Something's wrong with him. Yeah. He's coming to check me out. He's got something in his hands. I don't know what his deal is.
Okay, just let me know if he does
Get an
anything,
officer
okay?
over here.
Yeah, we got him on the way. Just let me know if this guy does anything else.
Okay. These assholes, they always get away. Yeah. When you come to the clubhouse, you come straight in and make a left. Actually, you would go past the clubhouse.
Okay, it says on the left-hand side from the clubhouse?
No, you go in straight through the entrance, and then you make a left. Yeah, you go straight in. Don't turn and make a left. Shit, he's running.
He's running? Which way is he running?
Down towards the other entrance of the neighborhood.
Okay. Which entrance is that he's heading towards?
The back entrance.
Are you following him?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
Okay.
All right, sir, what is your name?
George. He ran.
All right, George, what's your last name?
Zimmerman.
And George, what's the phone number you're calling from?
407-435-2400.
All right, George, we do have him on the way. Do you want to meet with the officer when they get out there?
Yeah.
All right, where are you going to meet with them at?
If they come in through the gate, tell them to go straight past the clubhouse and straight past the clubhouse and make a left. And then they go past the mailboxes. You'll see my truck.
Okay, what address are you parked in front of?
I don't know. It's a cut through, so I don't know the address.
Okay, do you live in the area?
Yeah.
What's your apartment number?
It's a home. It's 1950. Oh, crap. I don't want to give that out loud. I don't know where this kid is.
Okay, do you want to just meet with them right near the mailboxes then?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, George, I'll let them know to meet you with you out there. Okay?
Actually, could you have him call me and I'll tell him where I'm at?
Okay, yeah, that's no problem.
You need my number? You got it.
Yeah, I got it. It's 407-435-2400.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, no problem. I'll let them know to call you when they're in the area.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
One thing that I failed to mention, and I'll just, before we go back through the actual timeline, is I showed you where George Zimmerman lived. Here we are. Clubhouse, pool, T. And that Trayvon Martin was staying in the neighborhood with his father's girlfriend. Her name's Brandy Green. She has a 12-year-old son, Chad Johnson, I believe, that Trayvon Martin was sort of hanging out with. There were no adults home in that night. It was only 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and it was the All-Star game that before that had gotten underway. So, but that's down here. in this area. Just to kind of, okay. If we could go back then to the beginning of the call. And let's take a look at the times. I'm sorry, let's, at the very top. The very top of the display. Can you go back to the beginning? You know, I think if you take the button on the bottom and just pull it all the way to the left, you'll get to the front. Yeah, there we go. Now, let's take a look at the times. Stay on that one. Okay, stay. There might be a second or two, depending on where the record came from, but within a second or two of each end, this is George Zimmerman's call to the police. The non-emergency call timeline was connected after he had seen Trayvon Martin at 7:09:34. That's the call with Sean Nofke. And that call disconnected at 7:13:40. All right, next. I'm looking for the beginning of the call. Yes, right there. This is the sort of the parallel calls connected here. You see that while there had been lots of other calls and a ton of text and all sorts of things that day, the second to last call between Rachel Gentile and Trayvon Martin started at 6:54:16. So that was well before George Zimmerman called the police. And then it ended at 7:11:47. That's what I said a moment ago. We'll tie it up at the end. About 20 seconds later, they reconnected. I submit that 20 seconds won't turn out to matter very much because you'll soon learn that George Zimmerman was on the phone during that entire time with the police. Okay, so let's walk through it just a little bit more. Next. So George Zimmerman says to Sean Nofke, he's just staring at me. Mr. Nofke asks, is near the clubhouse right now? And Mr. Zimmerman says, yeah, now he's coming towards me. What that's all about is this. George Zimmerman saw Trayvon Martin over in this area as he was coming around here to go out to Target. He pulled over to make the call in the vicinity of the clubhouse. So when this part of the conversation is taking place, Mr. Zimmerman is sitting here on the phone with the police. So they're talking about the clubhouse. Next. The dispatcher, after hearing what George Zimmerman said, okay, just let me know if he does anything else. And George Zimmerman says, get an officer over here. Please get an officer. The little discussion was, do you want somebody? Yes. Please get an officer over here. Directly asking the dispatcher to please send a police officer to the neighborhood. And then it's repeated by the dispatcher, just let me know if this guy does anything else. 7 or 8 seconds later, George Zimmerman laments, if you will. He's been involved in the community for a while. He's made other calls. In fact, his role as the liaison with Neighborhood Watch was that there's one point person with Wendy Dorval. So instead of all of the residents calling her with any issues, Mr. Zimmerman coordinated that. So residents would ask him to phone in something or to report something. So he was familiar with what was going on in the community, not just from his own experience, but from having been involved as the coordinator liaison. In fact, there was an attempted break-in just a couple of weeks before, right around this area. Right around this area. So you can hear him say it. We'll play it one more time before we're done with this. These assholes always get away. Next. George Zimmerman's still in the car. By that time, though, he has moved. Was he following Trayvon Martin? Yes, he was following Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin continued to walk this way or jog this way. In any event, he kept moving this way. And George Zimmerman did too. He was following him at a distance and reporting what he was seeing to the police and describing what was happening. So when the dispatcher Nofke said, "Let me know if he does anything else," George Zimmerman was doing that. He was following him in the car and got up to about here. That's where the car was. And says, "Shit, he's running." The dispatcher says, "Which way is he running?" He's running. Which way is he running? Suggesting that he would like Mr. Zimmerman, submit, to tell him which way he's running. But it's a cut through. You can't drive in that direction. You can only see which way he's running if you get out of the vehicle to see where he went. So, George Zimmerman at 7:11:43, you can hear this, we'll play it again so you can listen for it, unbuckles his seatbelt and opens the car door. You can hear the chime, and you'll hear the door shut at 7:11:48. Okay. I didn't write it down. Maybe one of you did. I seem to remember that the call ended between Trayvon Martin and Rachel Gentile right about that time, 7:11:47, something like that. Yeah, 7:11:47. All right, so at this point, when George Zimmerman opens the car door, gets out of the car, that call had just ended. They had been losing calls on and off all day. That wasn't a surprise to anybody. One call the other call back. There's no reason ascribed to this by Ms. Gentile other than they'd been having trouble with the system. So the call ends. And then at 11:48, right there, that's when Mr. Zimmerman gets out of the truck and the dispatcher says, which entrance is that? He's headed towards the back entrance. You will start to hear some noise, I think the evidence will show you, in the background that suggests that Mr. Zimmerman is out of the vehicle. Whether it's breath noises, wind noises, how fast Mr. Zimmerman was moving, no suggestion that he was actually running, but you can hear more noise going on, and it's evident from the recording that he's out of the vehicle. So, he says, almost under his breath, "These fucking punks." At that point, Trayvon Martin had been staring at him. He'd approached him. He had his hand in his waistband. And then he took off. Right then, Sean Nofke, the dispatcher, figures out more of what's going on. He realizes, probably due to some of the additional noise, that it seems like Mr. Zimmerman is out of the vehicle and says, "Are you following him?" And George Zimmerman doesn't say no. He says, "Yeah, I am following him." And what he had done by then is he had gotten out of the vehicle and had gone in this direction. So he's coming right down here when you're hearing the noise and when you're hearing the discussion about which way is he running. And then he's up around here. To me, it's not clear from the evidence. Pay attention to it if you would. There's a woman up here, her name is Jane Serdyka, that saw parts of this at different points in time. She said she thought she heard a voice, or maybe voices, a minute or two, three, she's not clear on the time, before the exchange that turned into the event. It might have been George Zimmerman talking on the phone with the dispatcher. There's no way to know that for sure, but it would be somewhat consistent, I would think. We'll need to hear what she says exactly to know if that's possible. If it isn't, then it could have been someone else, perhaps. This was the dog path. This is where people would take their dogs and walk them, and the disposal station is here. So, in any event, George Zimmerman is coming along here talking with the dispatcher, and Sean Nofke says, "Are you following him?" George Zimmerman says, "Yes." And Sean Nofke says, "We don't need you to do that." George Zimmerman says, "Okay." Suggesting, I suppose, you don't need to do anything more to tell us which way he went, where he went, or even if he's doing anything else. So George stopped. George Zimmerman stopped. This is the pickup on the call between witness A, that's Rachel Gentile. As you may know, there's been some anonymity issues throughout the case. There aren't now, except for the jury, of course. So if you see something in the trial that's marked with a witness number, we'll try to remember to tell you who they are so you can keep all that straight. It would be unreasonable to ask you to keep all the witness numbers straight. So that's Rachel Gentile. She's 19 now. She was 18 at the time in February of 2012. And she came into this case mid to late March, about 3 weeks after the event. And a little later I'll explain to you how that happened, what the circumstances were, and ask you to consider certain things in evaluating her testimony. So at this point, it's routine for Sean Nofke. He asks George Zimmerman, "What's your name?" "George." And George repeats, "He ran." This is a statement made by the dispatcher to Mr. Zimmerman, keeping in mind the police are on their way. Mr. Zimmerman asked a few moments ago to please send an officer, and Mr. Nofke assured that they had. And Mr. Nofke says to Mr. Zimmerman, for sort of orientation purposes, "What address are you parked in front of?" Then there was a little confusion because he was parked over here, but there aren't any street signs right here. So unless you actually have memorized the name of the street, you can know where you are. I think we've all done that. We know exactly where we are, but we don't happen to be able to know the name of the street. There's a question whether this is, in fact, I don't know if it's Twin Trees or Twin Lakes, it's one or the other. But this is Retreat View Circle. And it goes all the way around. In fact, George Zimmerman lives on Retreat View Circle down here. So there was some confusion about what address So Mr. Nofke got to the heart of it and said, "Do you live in the area?" Mr. Zimmerman, "Yeah." "Okay, what's your apartment number?" Orienting. So, next. It's a home, meaning a townhome. These are all townhomes, similar design. And then Mr. Zimmerman realizes he just gave, or was about to give, his address out loud. And stops and catches himself because he does not know where Trayvon Martin is. He ran, he lost him, he can't provide any information to the police, which way was he running, or where he is, and he says, "Oh crap, I don't want to give that out, I don't know where this kid is." Well, you'll see the evidence proves at least one thing. Trayvon Martin hadn't gone home. We know that. We also know it was almost pitch black out. Mr. Guy pointed that out. This was a picture taken by one of the investigators for the medical examiners group when they got there. The police had already cordoned off the area, put the the tape up that you see. Taking a picture with a flash right here. That's with the flash. I won't. You can see the building on the corner. You can see some stuff in here. The only point now is it was really, really dark. Now, this was later, admittedly, and we were still talking only 7 in the afternoon, evening in February, but all of the witnesses agreed it was dark. It had been raining all day. It was just plain dark. Sun goes down, what, 4:30, something like that in the winter. So George Zimmerman says, "I don't know where this kid is. I don't want to give my address out loud." Next. Some more conversation. Well, where do you want to meet the officers? You want to meet them at the mailboxes. Mr. Zimmerman says, "Okay." And then he says, "Well, you have my number, right? This is the era of cell phones. We are immediately in contact. So instead of meeting at a specific location, keeping in mind the mailboxes are over here. Mr. Zimmerman's truck is here. Mr. Zimmerman says, just have him call me. You got my number, and I'll tell you where I am." Let's, if you don't mind, let's just play it through one more time. It's only 4 minutes, and we'll be done with this part.
Sanford Police Department, line stand record the Sean.
Hey, we've had some break-ins in my neighborhood, and there's a real suspicious guy. It's Retrieve You Circle. The best address I can give you is 111 Retrieve You Circle. This guy looks like he's up to no good, or he's on drugs or something. It's raining, and he's just walking around looking about.
Okay, and this guy, is he white, black, or Hispanic?
He looks black.
Did you see what he was wearing?
Yeah, a dark hoodie, like a gray hoodie, and either jeans or sweatpants and white tennis shoes. He's here now. He was just staring.
Oh, he's just walking around the
looking
area.
at all the houses.
Okay.
Now he's just staring at me.
Okay, he said it's 1111 Retrieve You or 111?
That's the clubhouse.
That's the clubhouse. Do you know what he's near the clubhouse right now?
Yeah, now he's coming towards me.
Okay.
He's got his hand in his waistband. Yeah, he's a black male.
Okay. How old would you say he
He's
looks?
got a button on his shirt. Late teens.
Late teens, okay.
Mm-hmm. Something's wrong with him. Yeah. He's coming to check me out. He's got something in his hands. I don't know what his deal is.
Okay, just let me know if he does
Get an
anything,
officer
okay?
over here.
Yeah, we got him on the way. Just let me know if this guy does anything else.
Okay. These assholes, they always get away. Yeah. When you come to the clubhouse, you come straight in and make a left. Actually, you would go past the clubhouse.
Okay, it says on the left-hand side from the clubhouse?
No, you go in straight through the entrance, and then you make a left. Yeah, you go straight in. Don't turn and make a left. Shit, he's running.
He's running? Which way is he running?
Down towards the other entrance of the neighborhood.
Okay, which entrance is that he's heading towards?
The back entrance.
Are you following him?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
Okay.
All right, sir, what is your name?
George. He ran.
All right, George, what's your last name?
Zimmerman.
And George, what's the phone number you're calling from?
407-435-2400.
All right, George, we do have him on the way. Do you want to meet with the officer when they get out there?
Yeah.
All right, where are you going to meet with them at?
If they come in through the gate, tell them to go straight past the clubhouse and straight past the clubhouse and make a left. And then they go past the mailboxes. You'll see my truck.
Okay, what address are you parked in front of?
I don't know. It's a cut through, so I don't know the address.
Okay, do you live in the area?
Yeah.
What's your apartment number?
It's a home. It's 1950. Oh, crap. I don't want to give it out loud. I don't know where this kid is.
Okay, do you want to just meet with them right near the mailboxes then?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, George, I'll let them know to meet you with you out there, okay?
Actually, could you have him call me and I'll tell him where I'm at?
Okay, yeah, that's no problem.
You need my number? You got it.
Yeah, I got it. It's 407-435-2400.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, no problem. I'll let them know to call you when they're in the area.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, 7:13:40, the call ends. Keeping in mind that by this time, Trayvon Martin was back on the phone with Rachel Gentile and stays on the phone for the next couple of minutes. So, you'll hear more about Ms. Gentile and what she heard, but I think more importantly, perhaps, what she didn't hear if George Zimmerman was actively pursuing, chasing with the intent to confront and murder Trayvon Martin. Second-degree murder requires an act reckless, indifferent to human life, a depraved mind act, ill will, hatred, spite. What Rachel Gentile will tell you in her conversation with Trayvon Martin, at the moment that this actually became physical, was that Trayvon Martin, I'll use my words, that Trayvon Martin decided to confront George Zimmerman. That instead of going home, he had plenty of time. He had, this is what, 60, 70 yards? Plenty of time. Could have gone back and forth 4 or 5 times if he wanted to. But choosing not to do that, he either left and went back or just hid in the darkness to see about this guy that he thought was following him, and turned to George Zimmerman out of the darkness and said, "Why are you following me?" Or something to that effect. And we know that was pretty close in time to the end of this call. Pretty close. We don't know exactly when. But if you accept what Rachel Gentile says she heard, whether it's accurate or not, whether it was exactly the words, "Why you following me for?" or something to that effect, that's basically the last thing she heard. There'll be some other things we'll talk about, but that was when Trayvon Martin made the decision to confront George Zimmerman and say, "What are you following me for?" So how does that fit together? I'll show you. Thank you. The T, keep that in mind, the T up here. This is a slide, I guess you'd call it, or a diagram, just for orientation. This is the T. There's the dog thing. As I said before, we were using witness numbers rather than names. And what this shows you is a slide that positions the evidence that was marked, identified, and collected by law enforcement after the shooting. Let's talk about a little of that first. No, let's do this. This is where Jenna Lauer and Jeremy Weinberg lived. Jenna Lauer is the one who made the call when she heard the commotion out here in the neighborhood, in the vicinity of the T. She describes what she heard as some loud voices. She called it a sort of three-part exchange, like an accusatory or confrontation voice, a response, and another one, kind of a three-part exchange. Heard that off to their left. They were watching TV out here. This is screened, and behind it is the sliding glass door that was open. However, they couldn't see anything because they had these little bamboo slatted blinds that were down, so they couldn't see it, but they knew something was happening. Enough that it got their attention, they decided to call the police. With this three-part exchange, they started to hear what they thought maybe was scuffling feet on grass, and then they started hearing someone moaning or crying for help. They dialed the phone. I'm trying to remember. I think they tried a phone and it wasn't on, or they couldn't get it to work, so they tried the other one. But within just a few seconds, they got through. Keeping in mind that I think the call was connected at 7:16:11, something like 30 seconds after the call with Trayvon Martin and Rachel Gentile ended. So we're only talking about 30 seconds, including the time it takes to dial the phone, get the phone, dial the phone, figure out, hey, there's something going on here, make the call, connect the call, and you'll hear the operator here in a second. You've all heard those anyway, those operators. So, hearing the exchange, the voices, hearing what they thought was something going on, they called the police. They called emergency services. And here's what they heard. Here's the call. This is the call with the screams. This is the call with the shot, to keep in mind. The shot occurs about 40, maybe 45 seconds into this recording. There is a sound, though, that precedes the shot by a few seconds that on first listening sounds like it could be a shot. It's not. There's no mistake, no dispute in this case that George Zimmerman fired one and only one shot. That is proven by forensic evidence. I'll digress for just a moment. The reason we know that, not like he fired once and missed, not like he shot 2 times, as you might think if you hear this. Mr. Guy gave you the answer. Any of you that are familiar with firearms know that you can put an additional round in the gun after the magazine itself is full, simply by putting one into the chamber and then putting another one into the magazine. So if the magazine holds 7, you can actually put 8 rounds in the gun. It's clear that's what happened in this case because the police found 1 shell casing and the magazine still was filled to capacity. So there was only 1 shot, no matter how you look at it. We'll talk more about the gun here in a little bit too. Let's get on with the call. Mr. Pinello, would you help me with that, please?
911, do you need police, fire, medical?
Maybe both. I'm not sure. There's just someone screaming outside.
Okay, what's the address that they're near? Is this in the Twin Lake Homes in Sanford?
Yes.
Okay, and is it a male or female?
It sounds like a male.
And you don't know why?
I don't know why. I think they're yelling help, but I don't know. Just send someone quick. Say stop.
Okay. Does he look hurt to you?
I can't see him. I don't want to go out there. I don't know what's going on. So they're sending him.
So you think he's yelling to help?
Yes.
All right, what is your phone number?
Just there's gunshots.
You just heard gunshots?
Yes.
How many?
There's one. Get down. No, come here.
Is he no
Hey,
longer
come on.
yelling?
No one. I don't know. Get in here now.